name is Camille Delorme. We were fishing. I knew that there were a lot of deer and elk, and I was kind of scanning the tree line looking. There were two.
15, 20 minutes later, I could hear something walking on the gravel. Next thing you know, I got onto the porch. I hear the screen door open.
Exploring the deepest forests can feel like stepping into the unknown. But what happens when the shadows themselves seem alive? Tonight, we uncover 6 terrifying Sasquatch encounters. True stories that will make you question every rustle, every crack of a branch, and every moment you think you're alone in the woods. D-Max UK's latest expedition took the crew deep into Kentucky, guided by a local expert Charles to a ridgeline unlike any other. Surrounded by steep hills and wedged between a busy highway and a popular state park, the location offered little in the way of natural cover. Still, as they surveyed the area, an unsettling feeling lingered. Was this really just an ordinary stretch of land, or had it been touched by something more?
The eyeshine video, of course, was filmed at night, so we wouldn't know what the location would look like.
Good to see ya. Good to see you.
When we met Chuck, he took us to the exact spot, which was a ridgeline with a steep hill on each side. This isn't what I would consider ideal habitat for any animal to take cover. You have a busy highway on one side, and on the other side is this popular state park.
This was the spot, the place where it all unfolded. Charles explained that he had been standing on a rock, filming the area as dusk settled over the ridgeline. Then, unexpectedly, eyeshine appeared, glinting through the underbrush. The team held their ground for several tense minutes, only to witness something even more unnerving. Pam spotted a figure emerging from behind her. Feeling the weight of an unseen presence, the group had no choice but to retreat, leaving the ridge with a lingering sense of unease.
This is where it happened. Where were you standing?
I was standing right here on the rock, and we came up here, and it was right before dark. And I was filming this area here, and when I turned around, there was eye shine coming from right through here. We stood there for maybe 5 minutes. Just right after that's when Pam seen the one come up and behind her, and we kind of felt threatened by that. So
in the footage, 2 glowing eyes stared back, unusually large and widely spaced. Some suggested it might be an owl, but the proportions seemed far too extreme for any known bird. To uncover the truth, the team decided to reconstruct the scene. Armed with 2 red LED flashlights, Bobo took on the role of the mysterious figure, moving through the shadows as the crew measured angles and distances, every step intensifying the question of what had truly been lurking just out of sight.
The 2 eyes in the video seem to be rather large and far apart. Now, the most likely culprit, if this is a misidentification, is an owl. And I think that these eyes would be too big and too far apart to be an owl. However, it's only by doing a recreation and measuring a couple things are we going to be able to figure that out.
So about here?
Using 2 red LED flashlights, Bobo stepped in to play the role of the Sasquatch once again.
Something watched them from the shadows. 2 glowing eyes just beyond the crooked branch, tension creeping into his voice. Bobo stepped forward with a measuring tape. The team determined to find out exactly how high those eyes had been. Inch by inch, he climbed, stretching toward the gray area on the tree. Step after step, the height became clear, 8 feet 9 inches right at eye level. The revelation left the crew frozen. Whatever had been watching wasn't just mysterious, it was enormous.
The eyes are right around the end of that crooked branch, right there.
How's that?
No, the eyes have to be even higher up, Bobo.
I mean, I could reach up 8 feet.
You can't reach up as high as we need you to go, so why don't you use the measuring tape, and we can try to determine the eye level with those. Okay, Bobo, measure up to about that gray area on the tree, if you see where that is.
So that's about the bottom of my foot there. I'm getting pretty high up there.
A little bit more, maybe another inch, right in there.
Wow, that would be about 8'8", 8'9".
Yeah, 8'9", right.
Look at that crooked branch in the footage, and now notice where those eyes appear. Way above their heads, almost impossibly high. Even from the ground, the height is shocking. Some say it could be an owl, but think carefully. Where would an owl even perch to create that effect? To make things stranger, a branch that might have supported it 3 years ago is gone today. The idea of a Sasquatch standing that close seems even less likely. There would have to be some trace of a face, some sign of presence, and yet, those eyes were real and they were watching. The question hangs in the air. What could possibly reach that high, unseen, and so unnervingly still?
Now in the original video, look at the crooked branch compared where the eyes are.
Whoa. See how far up above your head that is?
I'm tiny.
You're like a little over half its size.
It's just amazing it's that high in the air.
Because it's an owl on a branch.
Where would the owl be sitting?
I believe there's a branch that 3 years later is no longer there. Is far more probable and likely than a Sasquatch was standing that close to you and you couldn't see some mark of the face.
The team kept their eyes on the shadows, aware that something was moving, something large. The air was thick with tension as a deep sound echoed nearby, unmistakably heavy and powerful. Breaking the silence, but the doubt lingered. Hesitant, they decided to test the response, making small noises to see if anything would react. Moments later, the unmistakable impression of something massive became clear. The team exchanged tense glances. Whatever was out there, it was big, and it was close.
That just sounded so big.
This is a good time for a howl.
Yeah, I think we should make some more noises.
Will you do it?
Sure.
Hey folks, we did hear something big up here, so Clip's gonna do a scream.
Copy that.
Come on, Kentucky Squatch.
No one knew exactly what had just moved in the shadows. The team stayed on high alert, scanning the dark woods with every step, turning back repeatedly to check the direction of the movement. In these forests, nothing is obvious. Sasquatches are masters of subtlety. Every snap, every rustle, every faint crackle demanded investigation, because sooner or later, one of those ordinary sounds could reveal the extraordinary.
That was, but Matt made a right decision at that point. He said, you know what, maybe there's something trailing us. We need to be on extra high guard. We need to keep turning around and therming into the woods that direction, because you never know. Sasquatches are not obvious creatures. They are so subtle. You have to investigate every little crackle and pop in the woods to eliminate all possibilities. And one of those times, it's going to turn out to be a Sasquatch.
And when it does, there's no turning back. The question of what or who was lurking in those Kentucky woods remains unanswered. But one thing is certain. Charles and the team came face to face with something enormous, something that watched from the shadows, and they have no intention of ever venturing back to challenge it again. The Travel Channel ventured deep into the wilderness where curiosity meets the unknown. Viewers watched as the team asked the crowd a simple yet chilling question. Had anyone ever encountered a Sasquatch? Slowly, hands began to rise, a silent acknowledgement that something mysterious was out there, something that had left its mark on more than just the forest.
So satisfy our curiosity, please. If you think you have encountered a Sasquatch at some point, please put your hands nice and high in the air.
Camille Delorme went out fishing, the quiet of the woods pressing in from every side. She knew the area was alive with deer, and maybe something far stranger. Her eyes drifted across the tree line, scanning for movement, when she suddenly froze. Two figures emerged, one tall, standing perfectly still beside a massive willow bush, the other lurking just behind it, parting the branches as if studying her. A shiver ran down her spine as the realization sank in. They weren't deer. The forest seemed to hold its breath, every rustle amplified in the heavy silence. Camille couldn't tear her eyes away, trapped by the gaze of something she couldn't explain.
My name is Camille Delorme. We were fishing. I knew that there were a lot of deer and elk, and I was kind of scanning the tree line looking. There were two. There was a tall one standing next to a big willow bush, and the other one was right next to it. and it had the bush parted. It was like this.
Dion Kroom never expected his routine drive to turn into something unforgettable. As he cruised down the highway on the way out hunting, a figure appeared at the edge of the road. Something completely out of place. The moment it noticed the vehicle, it moved with impossible speed, clearing the road in just 3 steps. Shocked, Dion turned to his brother asking if they had seen it too. Both nodded, eyes wide, barely able to speak. For a heartbeat, the world seemed frozen, as if whatever had appeared had slipped back into the shadows, but left a memory that refused to fade.
My name is Dion Kroom. Was on our way out hunting, driving down the highway. And you could just see something standing out of the ordinary. Once it noticed us, he clears the road in 3 steps. Told my brother and my wife, "Did you guys see that?" And they're like, "Yeah."
Candy Usazero had barely set foot on the south end of the marsh when the night seemed to shift around her. Strange, eerie noises pierced the stillness, sending a chill down her spine. She and her friend were out elk hunting when she suddenly told her son to turn on the spotlight, and that's when it appeared. A massive figure, looming behind a tree. Her body shook uncontrollably. Even now, the memory still terrifies her. Whatever it was had emerged from the shadows, a chilling reminder that some things in the dark are not meant to be seen.
Hello, my name's Candy Usazero. My oldest son, we went out elk hunting out here on the south end of the marsh. Kept hearing this weird noise. Told my son, turn on the spotlight. I could see this huge figure behind a tree. And I was shaking. I'm shaking right now because it scared the me.
Whispers of Yamy Mountain kept surfacing at the town hall meeting. The sacred mountain on the reservation was a place no one dared to enter. Rumors of strange, unexplainable occurrences kept people away. But for the team, the more mysterious, the better. Before speaking to a single witness, they decided to head straight into the heart of it, Bigfooting on Yamy Mountain, determined to uncover whatever secrets the shadows were hiding.
One name came up over and over again at town hall meeting, and that is Yamy Mountain. It's a sacred mountain on the reservation where no one goes. You're not supposed to go there because weird things happen there. Well, we're all about the weird, and we are here to Bigfoot. So before we speak to any witnesses at all, we are going to go Bigfooting tonight at Yamy Mountain to see what we can discover.
The trail stretched out perfectly before them, a strange blend of habitats teeming with hidden life. Then came the sound. A sharp knock, sudden and deliberate. At first, it seemed like a branch snapping, but the forest felt alive. A second movement followed, subtle yet deliberate, just beyond sight, as if something or someone was tracking their every step.
This is such perfect terrain.
Nice mixture of habitats.
Did you hear that,
Whoa,
Bobs?
is that a branch falling or just I only heard one knock.
It sounded like a branch breaking.
The team crept through the forest, eyes scanning the ground and shadows alike. Something's been watching across here. Deep tracks mark the earth, sharp and deliberate, visible to anyone with a headlamp. Elk and mule deer crisscross the trail, an ungulate highway, but no human footprints anywhere. The absence of people felt wrong, almost deliberate, and a shiver ran down their spines. Every crack of a branch and rustle of leaves made them jump, as if the forest itself was alive, waiting. After all these encounters, figures in the shadows, impossible movements, and tracks that lead nowhere, the question remains, what really walks these forests when no one is looking? Could it be a creature we've never fully understood, or something far stranger, hiding just beyond the edge of our perception? On a flash of beauty, Bigfoot revealed, the search for Sasquatch takes center stage. David Politis, former law enforcement officer and researcher behind Missing411.com, has spent years documenting unexplained disappearances. His interest in Sasquatch began over a decade ago through a chance connection in technology. What started as curiosity has grown into a serious investigation where missing persons and Bigfoot intersect.
My name is David Politis. I own the websites Missing411.com, and that includes research on missing people. Originally, I got started on researching Sasquatch about 15, 16 years ago when I had an acquaintance in technology that I used to work for.
From start to finish, David was involved in every aspect of the film, handling nearly everything. When he first stepped into the project, he knew nothing about Bigfoot. At the time, he was a 20-year-old simply approached by individuals eager to uncover the facts. What began as a routine inquiry would soon draw him deep into one of the most mysterious and controversial subjects he had ever encountered.
So everything about that film I was involved with from cradle to grave. The only part I didn't do specifically was the final edit, the sound, the mix, the music, etc. So when I first started off, I didn't know anything about Bigfoot. I was just a 20-year police officer, detective, approached by some people trying to find the facts out about the topic.
Like many newcomers to the world of Bigfoot research, David Politis first turned to academics. He pored over the work of biologists and followed Dr. Meldrum's studies, believing they held the key to understanding the creature. At first, he trusted that these experts had uncovered the mystery, but as he delved deeper, he would discover that the story of Bigfoot was far more complex and far stranger than any textbook could explain.
As I think a majority of people do when they first enter that Bigfoot world, I went toward the academic side. I listened to the biologists who had written things about Bigfoot. I listened to Dr. Meldrum, and I always thought at the beginning there that, well, those people are the academics. They really should know the nuts and bolts about the topic.
It raises an unsettling question. What does it mean when entire phenomena remain officially unacknowledged? UFOs, glowing orbs, Bigfoot, and other cryptids are consistently dismissed, avoided, or denied outright. To many observers, this refusal to engage is not coincidence, but a pattern. Some believe these mysteries belong in the same category, perhaps even interconnected parts of a much larger, hidden reality.
So let's think about that for a second. What would that mean? UFOs. They don't want to disclose, they don't want to acknowledge. Orbs. Bigfoot. Cryptids. They don't want to acknowledge any of those things. Now, there's a lot of people that would say that that entire topic that I just covered could be placed in one bucket, and they may be all interrelated.
Out of the shadows, a massive figure appeared, an 8 to 9 foot tall creature, unmistakably Bigfoot. It moved toward the explorer with a presence that made the forest seem to hold its breath. Then, in a moment that defies explanation, the creature spoke directly to him, mind to mind. This was no ordinary encounter. It was a confrontation with the unknown that would change everything he believed.
Disability that may happen with a foot, the injuries, all go towards pointing that Bigfoot has maybe supernatural abilities, but has...
Reports of Bigfoot had been pouring in along the San Juan River from Bloomfield to Shiprock, and the numbers were staggering, over separate sightings. The speaker and Stan set out to track the creature, following enormous footprints that looked like oversized human tracks. One print measured a jaw-dropping 21 inches, suggesting a being of immense size, larger than even Shaquille O'Neal. With a stride stretching 5 feet from heel to heel, this was a creature of strength and scale unlike anything they had ever imagined.
We had over 30 sightings of people that reported Bigfoot along the San Juan River up in the Bloomfield to Shiprock area. Me and Stan started tracking this creature about a mile or so. It looked exactly like a large version of a human track. It measured 21 inches. So unless something's out there bigger than Shaquille O'Neal, I wouldn't want to meet it, you know? I mean, it's big. We have a 5-foot stride from heel to heel.
Out of nowhere, enormous tracks appeared, and then just as mysteriously, they vanished into thin air, unsure of what he might capture, but driven by the hope of something extraordinary. Then, against all odds, he filmed a Sasquatch, Bigfoot, eerily similar to Patterson-Gimlin footage. It was a moment where legend collided with reality, leaving him, and anyone who witnessed it, in complete awe.
Even describes that these tracks start and stop sometimes in the middle of nowhere. He goes, it's really strange. And he's carrying his camera around and he's hoping to catch something, but he's not even sure what he's hoping to catch because he hasn't seen anything. And then he catches Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Looks very similar to me to Patty and the Patterson-Gimlin footage.
Throughout his research, David came across Bigfoot tracks of every imaginable size, some so small they almost seemed impossible. During this period, he reached out to Oregon researcher Ray Crow and gained access to his unique collection of studies. Hidden within that archive was one of the earliest recorded tracks of a tiny Bigfoot caught in motion, something few had ever seen. The find added a surprising twist to David's investigation, revealing a hidden world far stranger and more mysterious than he had ever anticipated.
So over the course of me looking into Bigfoot Sasquatch, I've seen all kinds of tracks. Small, medium, large, tiny. Ray Crow in Oregon was a researcher who was selling his research at about the time I was entering. And I went up there, bought the research, and unbeknownst to me at the time, he had one of the first tracks that Paul made of a tiny Bigfoot walking around.
A young girl had just waved goodbye to her husband as he left for his graveyard shift when strange footsteps began crunching on the gravel. Her dogs whimpered under the porch, sensing something she couldn't yet see. Curious and uneasy, she stepped outside, never imagining she was about to witness the unknown up close.
Was working the graveyard shift, and then about 15-20 minutes later, I could hear something walking on the gravel. What caught my attention was the dogs. They were under the porch. I'm like, what are they doing? Next thing you know, I got onto the porch. I hear the screen door open.
The screen door slowly creaked open, and the doorknob moved by itself. When she looked closer, it was covered in hair, and a strange, awful smell filled the air. For a long moment, they just stared at each other, unsure of what they were seeing. Could whatever left that mark still be out there, just beyond sight? Salish Sasquatch presents verified sightings and first-hand encounters of Sasquatch across the Pacific Northwest. In this video, we present a carefully curated list of our most notable guests and memorable encounters, highlighting stories that have resonated most with our audience. We begin with Dean Parker of the Macau tribe in Nebe, Washington, whose insights provide a unique perspective on the region's long-standing Sasquatch traditions.
Welcome to Salish Sasquatch, where we share evidence as well as encounters. I've been wanting to put together this video for a while now. This video is a compilation of our very favorite guests, our favorite encounters, channel favorites, and all of that wrapped into one video. So these are in no particular order, but we will start with Dean Parker of the Macau tribe in Nebe, Washington.
Dean Parker, known as Papado of Nebe, recalls a night that still chills him to this day. Driving back to Skokomish through the dark, empty stretch of Humpt, something appeared on the road. A figure emerged from the shadows, moving with an eerie, unnatural grace. It took 3 deliberate steps across the road and then vanished, swallowed by the darkness, leaving only a haunting silence behind.
All right, my name is Dean Parker. I'm from Nebe, and a lot of people call me Papado. And I'm going to tell you about my encounter with the Sasquatches. My first one was driving back to Skokomish, and we was going through tulips there, and it was during the nighttime, and I come up on the road, and I told Lameda, I said, "See that?" "Yes." "You know what that is?" "Yes." It's a Sasquatch, and it took about 3 steps across the road, and
What began as an ordinary moment quickly turned unsettling. From somewhere in the distance, a sharp whistling sound broke the silence. It didn't fade. It repeated, growing closer each time, deliberate, almost directed. With the wind pressing against his face, the realization set in that whatever was out there was no longer far away. The air felt wrong, and instinct warned that the situation was about to take a dangerous turn.
Then I heard this whistling noise out there in the distance. This is not going to be good. And I kept on hearing whistle getting a little bit closer, whistling at me, and I knew they were really getting. I was walking.
That moment became one of his most unforgettable experiences, an encounter with not one, but two Sasquatches, leaving a lasting impression that would stay with him long after the night ended.
Oh, that was my experience with the...
Long before he knew the legends of Sasquatch, Johnny grew up in Missouri, a childhood untouched by television and the tales it might have told. When his family moved to Washington State, the dense forests and rugged wilderness became the backdrop for a childhood adventure unlike any other. On one of his first backpacking trips, a dozen kids and a single adult, the stage was unknowingly set for encounters that would change everything he thought he knew about the world around him.
I grew up in Missouri, and I didn't have TV. We didn't have TV when I was a kid, so I didn't know anything about Sasquatch or Bigfoot. And my family moved to Washington State, and one of the first trips I did as a kid was I went on a backpacking trip with, I think there were 12 of us kids and one adult. And
while trekking through the rugged trails of Mount Three Fingers in the Boulder River wilderness, an eerie sound shattered the quiet. Something slammed against a tree with a force that no human could match, rattling the forest with rapid, thunderous blows. Even those who had grown up among these woods felt a shiver run down their spines. The group froze, hearts pounding, as the hair on their arms and the back of their necks prickled with an instinctive, chilling fear.
We were hiking on Mount Three Fingers in the Boulder River wilderness, and something in the woods pounded on a tree right next to us, and it was inhumanly loud sound. No person could have done it, and I think it knocked the number of people in our group on the tree. It was boom, 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 real fast, real loud. And I grew up, playing in the woods, and I never heard anything like that. And, everybody there, we just froze.
Further up the road, two campers emerged, their headlights cutting through the darkness as they made their way down the hill. But something, or someone, was following them. A tall, unnervingly slender figure appeared on the road, moving with an almost unnatural grace. When he pointed it out to his friend, they brushed it off, assuming it was just the campers. But his eyes stayed locked on the figure as it came fully into view, impossible to ignore, and the forest seemed to hold its breath.
So they were coming, the two people that had camped further up the road, they came walking down the hill, they had their headlights on, and they were about over here on my left when I saw a tall figure following them on the road. It was very slender, but very tall. And I remember saying, "Hey, I see something up there." And my buddy was over there. He said, "Oh yeah, that's the so-and-so. That's those people that are friends." And I was like, "No, they're over here." And everyone just kind of ignored me. But I watched this figure walk into view.
Sonia approached the encounter with logic, carefully testing every explanation. A bear didn't make sense, as none of the usual warning signs were present, and it didn't feel like a deer, another animal, or even a person in the woods. One final possibility crossed her mind, one she resisted at first: Sasquatch. That unsettling realization, paired with the location and behavior she witnessed, drew her into a mystery she could no longer ignore.
Through and find a provisional hypothesis for what it is you're experiencing. And so I'm like, okay, well, if it was a bear, I would expect these things to occur. Bears are big enough to break branches. Bears would slap the ground with their forepaws, but I would have expected to hear huffing or jaw popping. Yeah. Black bears almost never try to intimidate people, and if they do, they make really obvious bluff charges. You probably would see a bear. I didn't think it was a deer, but I said, okay, well, if it was a deer, here's what I'd expect. Was it a wild cat? Was it a creepy person? And then my final one that I didn't want to even put down was it a squat?
Sarah Brown is a witness whose account stands out for its clarity and detail. During her encounter, she observed a Sasquatch from a distance that allowed her to study its form, coloration, and movement with unusual precision. Her careful observations and the drawing she later created offer a rare and compelling perspective That adds depth to her experience and credibility to her account.
Until Friday, May 10th, which was actually the day of the Aurora Borealis, I saw a Sasquatch that was standing across a field that was about 200 yards away from us. And what I saw was very two-toned in color. It was similar to like an orangutan red. An orangutan red all over here.
The sighting lasted only seconds. As she spoke, her attention drifted for just a moment, long enough for something across the field to catch her eye. She looked up, locked onto the figure, and then, just as suddenly, it was gone. Like so many Sasquatch encounters, it vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but the lingering question of what had truly been there. Exploring with Angelo returns to a place that never truly felt empty, where Angelo once came alone and planned to spend the entire night. As darkness fell, the sounds grew stranger, and the feeling of being watched became impossible to ignore, forcing him to leave. Now, he is back with Frank, who after seeing the footage still cannot explain what happened out there. Surrounded by rumors of unknown creatures, they step in knowing whatever was there before may still be waiting.
So we've decided that we're going to come back to this place that I came not too long ago completely alone. This time I am with Frank, who's behind the camera, and we're very curious. Frank saw the video and he's like, what the happened out there? And I'm like, dude, I don't even know. I was ready to spend the entire night here, and things just progressively got creepier and creepier.
Yeah, that was some creepy shit.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Just noises that didn't make sense. I felt like there was definitely something out there. I felt like I was being hunted. Rumor has it there are like skinwalkers or some sort of creature or something out here.
The moment shattered the quiet without warning, as faint voices seemed to rise from the darkness below. He tried to make sense of it, scanning a ravine that held no trail, only rocks, caverns, and tangled trees. The deeper they looked, the clearer it became that no one should have been down there. Yet something had spoken, and the forest had answered back with silence.
Hang on, I just heard something talking down that way. How? I swear I just heard people. Sorry to cut you off, but I literally heard some
down
people.
Down there?
Yeah.
I don't see anything. I don't even... Wait, where does the trail go? No, I'm pretty sure the trail... Yeah, I don't think the trail goes down there.
No, I don't either. But I mean, looking at it, it looks like just a ravine.
No, it's just rocks.
Oh, is it all rock?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like rocks and caverns and stuff. A lot of trees down there.
A sudden glint cut through the darkness, eyes reflecting from somewhere just beyond the tree line. In that instant, the situation escalated, as the threat no longer felt imagined but visible. Whatever haunted this place was no longer limited to rumors of skinwalkers. With coyotes or wolves possibly circling as well, the night had become far more dangerous.
Oh, I just saw some eyes out there. Something glistened. Okay. Well, not only do we have to deal with possibly skinwalkers or whatever that, but potentially coyotes and wolves.
Another flash caught his attention, sharp and unmistakable, sending a chill through the moment. The sense of being watched tightened, the uneasy certainty that they were no longer alone pressing in from all sides. Then something worse happened. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a dark shape where his partner should have been. For a split second, the forest itself seemed to move, leaving behind only blackness and the fear that something unseen was standing far too close.
Yeah, just chuck them right at me, don't worry.
That's okay, I could kind of see where you are because your gloves are lit up like Thanos right now.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like it. I feel like a Iron Man. A little bit.
Whew, that's gonna take a second.
I guess it's hardwood, huh?
Yeah. Probably should have started at the smaller spot. Or actually maybe like right here for now.
He was certain he had seen something move near the cluster of trees, a shape slipping through the darkness without a sound. Confusion hit instantly as he questioned whether it was Angelo or something else entirely. The moment unraveled into panic, the realization setting in that whatever moved out there did not announce itself. And as the forest fell silent again, the question lingered. If it wasn't Angelo, then what had just revealed itself?
I could have sworn I saw something by like that grouping of trees. Oh. Was that Frank? Oh. Dude, that was like literally...
With tension cutting through his voice, he decided it was time to confront whatever was stalking them. He challenged it to reveal itself, calling out into the darkness instead of hiding like a coward. What made the moment truly unsettling was how close it had sounded, close enough to feel its presence at his side. In that silence that followed, the forest seemed to listen, as if something had just been invited to step forward.
Well, whatever you are, why don't you show yourself? Instead of being some weird, cowardly creature. It was just so creepy because it literally sounded like it was right next to me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
They stared in disbelief as what looked like a massive tree, easily 40 feet tall, appeared to be floating where it should not have been. Before they could make sense of it, a deep, chilling sound cut through the air, part howl, part warning, eerily close to a wolf's cry. What made it worse was the direction of the sound. It was coming straight toward them.
That's got to be like a 40-foot tree or something.
I know.
Like, it's massive.
That's a pretty tall tree. Yeah.
Well, it's like a howling?
Yeah.
Almost.
It almost kind of sounded like a wolf. Like, no joke.
Go figure in the direction of travel for us.
I know, right?
Some say these beings can imitate other creatures, using sound to lure and confuse. The ground showed evidence of something massive moving through, too heavy, too deliberate to be ordinary. As the night swallowed the noise, one thought lingered. Had they glimpsed reality, or had the forest itself been toying with them all along?
These creatures like to mimic things.
It could be.
They pretend to be other animals. Something big went through there.
Yeah.
Those are not human, are they? I can't tell. They might be. Oh yeah, I think somebody walked that way. Okay, I think those might be human.
On Small Town Monsters, it all starts with Stacy Hostetler, who never expected his quiet walk in the woods to turn into the moment that changed everything. It forced him into the mystery he's been chasing ever since. He had never been interested in Bigfoot, not even slightly. The thought barely ever crossed his mind. But that changed on March 17th, 2009. That morning, he set out for a simple day hike in a local Ohio park, something he did all the time.
One of the things I tell everybody, if they go out into the forest and they shoot video footage, like especially back then it was VHS tapes. Now it's an SD card. A lot easier to store these than what you did VHS. But I had shelf upon shelf upon shelf of VHS tapes. It was August 2nd of '92. I was out there by myself. I was shooting what they call B-roll footage. I wanted to show, this was before I actually brought anybody in from the Pacific Northwest to show them that we had the woods, the food, water, shelter for a big animal like this to exist.
The air was a crisp 41 degrees, the sky unusually bright and blue for an Ohio morning. Nothing fell out of the ordinary. But as he followed that random trail deeper into the woods, something was waiting, something that would rewrite everything he thought he knew about the wilderness forever. The moment he stepped off the trail, everything changed. He took just 2 steps into the woodline, 2, and something deep in the ravine erupted with a roar of crashing leaves and snapping branches.
Shooting footage of what we now call Sasquatch Lake. I didn't like the position I was at. turn around, take 4 or 5 steps. I believe it was 4 steps. You can tell by the bounces in the video camera. The camera, I left it running. So it's on my right shoulder. It's facing in that direction. I'm facing in this direction. No knowledge of what's walking down the road up there 100 yards away. I stopped momentarily, turned back around, shoot more footage of the lake, and put the tape on the shelf.
Whatever it wasn't small, and it definitely wasn't normal. He'd walked that trail 100 times without incident, but the moment he eased off the path and into the woodline, the forest responded. So loud, so powerful, it stopped him cold.
Through the process of elimination, we've kind of discovered how tall it is. It was light in color. I wouldn't say it was white, but it looks close to white. It was very quick. It wasn't around for long, a couple of seconds on video, and never seen it again. I wouldn't consider it a sighting because I did not see it with my eyes, but it was there. When Monster Quest came to Ohio and did an episode on the Ohio Grassman, they had a fella in Minnesota take a look at it.
Out of nowhere, 3 loud whistles hit him from behind. Not birds. This sounded human. And 10 seconds later, another set of identical whistles rose from the ravine. 2 perfect sets. 2 different places. Something out there was communicating the same 3 whistles climbed out of the ravine below, matching perfectly, note for note.
I got to this one point in the trail, and instead of going all the way down to the edge of the ridge, where this trail zigzagged and went down in a ravine, I decided to go off the trail and step into the wood line. The leaves were real crunchy. I took 2 steps off into the wood line, and as soon as I hit my second step, going into the wood line, something way down in the ravine just took off from left to right. I have never heard anything in the woods make that kind of sound that loud.
It wasn't an animal call, it was a message. Whatever made those sounds, I wasn't alone, and it wasn't hiding anymore. The sound hit him so hard it stunned him. His vision washed out white for a split second, and when his eyes snapped back into focus, he realized he wasn't alone. Between 2 trees, something massive froze mid-stride, staring straight at him. He didn't believe in Bigfoot, didn't give the idea any credit at all. But in that moment, with this thing locked on him, there was only one word his mind could form.
Various pop culture iterations of the creature, later known as the Yeti, sealed the deal, especially after Bigfoot burst on the scene and it became a handy visual reference. Bigfoot has black or brown hair, while the abominable snowman has white. Oddly enough, not only does that stance ignore the documented reports, it would seem that those same reports reveal the opposite to be true. The Himalayan Yeti is typically described as having dark or reddish-brown fur.
Bigfoot. For nearly 15 seconds, they held each other's gaze, silent, unmoving, and way too close. He'd never been this scared in the woods. Never. There, frozen between 2 trees, stood something enormous. 3.5 to 4 feet at the shoulders, easily 8 feet tall, and completely white from head to toe. It didn't move, it didn't breathe loudly, just watched it.
In the same vicinity that had also spotted a white creature, and the lady did report that the hair was down in front of its eyes, which makes us think it was the same creature.
Well, I think it could be old. There's a report of a white Bigfoot in the Willoughby area, Willoughby Hills, near the Schroon River. It's been seen several times. I suppose you could get an albino version of one, but I don't see any problem with a white Bigfoot. I mean, if they're like, it's regular hair and they're similar to us in genetics.
Time slowed, the forest around him fading into a heavy, silent stillness. His mind raced for one thought, one desperate escape. Get back to the truck, before it decides he's prey. The worst part? It was standing directly between him and his truck. To escape, he had to climb the trail, up out of the ravine, never taking his eyes off that towering white figure. Every step uphill felt like a gamble.
And especially seen at night, and like under a moonlit sky, you might see a dirty blonde Bigfoot walking around and think, oh, it's a white-colored Bigfoot. maybe, maybe not. But that's one potential, that's something that I think parallels this conversation, is that, you know, if you've got the black haired and the brown and the cinnamon, why not a dirty blonde leading up to even a silver or a white haired colored Bigfoot?
Like turning his back might be the last mistake he ever made. He kept glancing over his left shoulder, locked on it the entire time. And the moment he reached level ground, it moved. It bolted with explosive speed, 2 massive steps, then gone. Vanished into the trees as if it had never been there at all. That was the last glimpse he ever got of the creature. The creature disappeared into the shadows, leaving only questions behind. Could something that big really exist? Right here, in our own backyards? The YouTube channel Cabin in the Woods is known for exploring the unexplained and mysterious in the heart of dense forests. But for this adventure, the creator decided to bring his daughter along. While vacationing on Vancouver Island, Canada, they encountered what the creator had initially believed to be a single Bigfoot. On this foggy, isolated day, the forest seemed quiet, almost too quiet, as if hiding something just out of sight.
So if you didn't think I was completely nuts after my last Bigfoot encounter video, then you definitely will at the end of this one, because I'm about to explain in detail why what I initially considered to be an encounter with one of these creatures while vacationing with my family on Vancouver Island, Canada, I now consider to be an encounter with at least 2 of them.
From his daughter's perspective, the encounters were even more unsettling, and by the end of the day, he became convinced that what they had seen wasn't one creature, but at least 2. What followed would challenge everything he thought he knew about these elusive beings. On that day at Moo Creek Beach, the family began climbing a massive fallen tree log. One by one, they made their way up, each eager to reach the top. At first, the creator's daughter watched her father, then followed, with her mother close behind.
On Vancouver Island, and what happened when we were playing on that log, okay?
Well, what happened was Dad started climbing up on that big, like, tree log thing, and then of course I wanted to go too, so I began climbing, and then Mama followed, and then we all were up there, and then Mama got off or something, or she was sitting on another part.
Once they were all up there, her mother stepped away to sit nearby, leaving the children to explore the log and the nearby roof-like structure on their own. It was in those moments, while they played apart from their parents, that something strange began to stir. Events that would later take on a chilling significance. As they recounted the day, the daughter remembered the moment her father spotted something unusual. She explained how she had seen a rock flying through the air, what she later realized might have been a Sasquatch throwing it.
Found one fallen tree first, and then I saw something. I saw a large hulking black shape that appeared to have moved. And then I went back a final time the day after that, and I found another fallen tree that seemed to have been snapped off at the trunk, and the big black shape, which I now know to be a creature, was gone. That's the very condensed version of what happened. The full details, once again, are covered in that other video. As I said at the beginning of this video, my initial impression was that the hulking black mass that I saw...
At the time, she hadn't understood what it was, only that there were no humans around who could have done it. The rock struck the log with a loud crack, and had she not been safely positioned behind it, it could have hit her in the head. The memory of that echoing impact stayed with them both, a chilling reminder of just how close they had come to danger.
Because this thing moved. It kind of looked like a root ball, but it moved, and root balls don't move, and it disappeared the day after I initially saw it, which root balls also don't do. I posted my video about this entire encounter about a week ago at the time of this filming, and it got a lot of attention, which is not something I was expecting. A lot of people ask me, why didn't you get more footage of this or that? The reason is that I wasn't planning on making a YouTube video.
From the very beginning, he believed the massive dark figure he saw could only have been a single Bigfoot. Nothing else made sense. It couldn't have been a bear. Black bears were the only species in the area, and none of them reached the size of what he witnessed. This thing stood an estimated 8 to 9 feet tall, with a body at least 4 feet wide, towering over the surrounding brush. What unsettled him most was how it moved. At first glance, it resembled a huge root ball wedged in the foliage.
From that footage, and she explained to me in her note that she believed that there were two of them there, because in her opinion there were two distinct faces visible peeking through the thick bushes and foliage that I was trying to peer through at the time that I got the footage. I was a little bit skeptical at first, to be honest. She wasn't the first person to react this way. I had gotten a number of comments on that video with people explaining that they thought it was more than one creature. And I kind of thought, well, yeah, you're just seeing things. I was there. I think it was just one big one.
Until it shifted. Root balls don't move, yet this one did. And by the following day, the entire mass had vanished without a trace, something a root ball certainly doesn't do. After his encounter, a girl named Katie didn't just glance over the footage, she dissected it. Frame by frame, she sharpened and enhanced the images, trying to make sense of what had been captured in the thicket. And in her message, she revealed something unsettling. In her view, there weren't just shadows in those bushes.
A very nice lady named Katie, who lives in Australia, emailed me a few days after I posted my encounter video. She had taken the time and trouble to grab some screenshots from certain portions of that video where I was actually filming the creature. And she had done her best to sharpen and enhance those, which wasn't easy because, well, I was quite far away. I was 50 to 60 yards away when I filmed the creature. And I zoomed in a lot, and then in the first video I posted, I zoomed in digitally even more to get as close a view as possible.
There were two faces staring back. While the camera struggled to push through the tangle of leaves, something, or two somethings, were already watching from the other side. Hidden in the undergrowth, silent, deliberate, almost daring to be seen. But this discovery is only the beginning. There are layers still buried in the dark, and questions that grow louder the longer they're ignored.
But I looked at these screenshots that this lady, Katie, had sent, and the more I looked at these screenshots that she had filtered and sharpened a little bit in Photoshop, the more I thought, yeah, it kind of does look like there's two faces there. In fact, it really looks like there's two faces there. And you can see what I mean here as I go through the footage and I show you these screenshots, because on the left-hand side we have what appears to be a large hulking creature. You can see what, in my opinion, is the creature's right shoulder on the left of the dark shape, with an arm hanging down.
The more he studied Kathy's sharpened screenshots, the harder it was to deny what they showed. Two separate faces in the brush. He couldn't claim absolute certainty, but the second face sat too far to the right, too distant to belong to the same figure. If it were one creature, it would have to be impossibly wide, and nothing about that felt right.
I didn't notice it at the time when I was actually getting the footage because, as I said in my first video, I was probably 50 to 60 yards away and utilizing a lot of zoom on my phone camera to get the footage I got. So this level of detail wasn't apparent to me until I started examining the footage, and in the case of this second potential face, until this nice lady Katie emailed me. And again, the more I looked at her screenshots, the more I couldn't deny that it looked an awful lot like two faces.
On Wild Man of the Wilderness, every encounter begins as an ordinary moment until the darkness answers back. One quiet night in North Texas, while arriving at his grandparents' rural home, a young witness, David, stepped out of the car and into the unknown. Behind the house stretched acres of dense woods, silent and unlit. As he stood near the wall, something large shifted in the shadows.
Carport, but it was an older house, and it was really tight, so my grandfather would always make me get out of the car in the driveway. And I got out, and it was dark, and he had a retaining wall at one end of his driveway, and I saw something over there move around, and I thought it was just a big black dog. So I started walking over there towards it.
At first glance, it looked like nothing more than a big dog. But in the stillness of that night, the movement felt deliberate, watchful, and that was only the beginning. As he moved closer, he caught a glimpse of something strange and fleeting, At first, he thought it might be a giant bird with tattered feathers hanging from what looked like wings.
And as I got closer, I thought for a split second maybe it was some kind of giant bird, because it looked like it had wings with feathers hanging down. And it was down on all fours, crouched down, trying to stay in the shadows behind this retaining wall. And I got right up to the edge of it and looked down there, and
the creature stayed low on all fours, pressing itself into the shadows behind the retaining wall, as if trying to vanish from sight. When it finally turned its gaze toward him, his first thought was that it was snarling like the family dog. But in the next instant, a chilling realization struck him. It wasn't snarling at all. It was smiling.
And first I thought it was wrinkling its lips, because we had a dog and it was always growling and wrinkling its lips at me. But then I realized, and this is all happening very fast, that it was smiling at me. And with these, my dad played the piano, and the best way I can describe it is that the teeth look like the yellow keys on the piano.
The face was unnervingly human, so real that his mind couldn't process it. Then the creature slowly raised a hand and beckoned him closer, a gesture so deliberate it froze him in place. Panic surged through him. He screamed and ran toward the house. His grandfather rushed outside, but when he returned, he insisted he hadn't seen a thing. That night became his first unforgettable encounter with something wild, intelligent, and terrifyingly real.
Just like this. And I had been kind of frozen looking at this thing, but when it did that, I screamed and started running in, and my grandfather had already gone in the house, and I told him that there was a big hairy man over there. And he looked concerned, grabbed his 12 gauge, ran out there, and I heard a shot go off, and he came back in and said he didn't see anything.
He had tried to push it from his mind, to forget the encounter entirely, but some things refused to stay buried. That summer, he found himself at camp, joining one of the camp's legendary Brazos River trips. Their journey led them to a remote campsite near a place called Chick Bend, not far from the shadow of Kyle Mountain. Locals whispered that the area had its own strange history, strange sightings, and unexplained events that even the nearby scout camp couldn't ignore. Little did he know, the wilderness there had a way of keeping its secrets close. Until now. The companion he shared the tent and the canoe with spoke up, his voice tight with disbelief. He had seen it again, higher up the trail. A tree loomed nearby, and without hesitation, they climbed it, scrambling to the top for a better view.
One guy said it was a wolf, some guy said it was a bear, another guy said, no, it looks like a big monkey. And that was it. And then the next morning, we were all packing up, and this was probably 9 o'clock in the morning.
From above, they heard it. Something moving fast, pounding through the underbrush, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. They tore down the trail in pursuit, hearts racing. He was in the lead, rounding a jagged rock outcrop, then slammed into something solid. He felt it before he even saw it. Something alive, immense, brushing against him in the darkness. Trying to escape its grip only to catch the glint of its eyes and hear a guttural roar that shook the air. Just then, his friend appeared, wide-eyed, and froze at the sight. Fear took over completely, and in a split second...
So I kind of did a crab walk backwards because I was on my back, and got up and I screamed, and then this thing roared. And just about that time, this friend of mine, he came running up, he saw it too. And we were so terrified that we jumped off of that cliff.
They both plunged off the edge of the cliff, tumbling into the unknown, the creature's presence still echoing in the night. That night would mark the moment the wilderness revealed a predator unlike anything they had ever imagined. It didn't take long for him to notice. A new kind of visitor was slipping into town, bold and unafraid. Pets disappeared, trash bins were overturned, and he began calling them the urban feet. The same pattern was emerging. Deer, raccoons, even predators were wandering into human spaces.
So that kind of started my journey on this thing. You know, I started going down to the library and reading about this, and then I had seen, I can't remember the magazine, but I was down at the library. They had a magazine that had the 67 Patterson Gimlin, you know, and they were talking about it then and talking about the footprint. So I was like, okay.
Not long ago, a mountain lion killed a deer in the vacant, proving the line between wilderness and town was vanishing fast. If creatures like this are slipping from the shadows into towns, watching, hunting, and disappearing without a trace, how much of the wilderness we think we know is really still wild, and how close are these? Yet these 6 stories are just the beginning. The forests still whisper, shadows still move, and the question remains: what watches from the darkness, waiting for the next curious soul to wander too far? Stay alert, because out there, the unknown never truly sleeps.